I think in general, my brother and father and I all prep crowns pretty much the same way.
My brother and I both learned off our father, and we all teach at the dental school, so we've all learned off of each other. So our approach to it is pretty similar to each other.
You know, I might be a little more aggressive. I like to try to get a smaller size crown on. I think it looks more natural. But in general, you know, we prep it the right way. The preparation is almost the same for every tooth, and then there's a tooth by tooth variance depending on what decay is there.
I always prep all the fillings first. It's easier because you have a cleaner field. Once you start prepping crowns, because they go subgingival, they create a little bit of blood, which can hinder your view of some of the other teeth. So I always prep the fillings first, then we start prepping the crowns. For the anterior teeth, it's a very simple process. We do a 1.5 to 2 millimeter reduction of the occlusal surface. Once that's done, then we do our interproximal cuts. We use a 700 burr, which is like a 169 burr but has cross-cut fissures, so it cuts like a hot knife through butter. And we go around the tooth doing our interproximal slices, which do go subgingival. So some people are a little bit scared of going underneath the gums because they think it's going to create, you know, blood. But in order to have these crowns fit properly, you have to go subgingival a little bit.
Make sure you take enough off of the palatal. That seems to be where most people get hung up. They don't take enough off the lingual of the tooth, and then the crowns don't seat all the way. But the lingual surface or palatal surface of the tooth is the hardest to visualize when you're prepping a tooth. So it's really easy to see that you've taken enough off interproximally. It's very easy to see that you've reduced the facial and that you can get, you know, a crown to have a margin subgingival. But some people tend to ignore the lingual of the tooth. You know, you have to be a little bit subgingival on the prep. And if you look at the inside of the crown crown has a natural anatomy of a tooth. And the lingual surface, you know, has greater reduction than on the facial. So you have to make the prep look like the inside of the crown. So you need to take a little bit off of the lingual, a little extra off the lingual to get the crown to seat down straight all the way. But, you know, going around the whole thing circumferentially, making sure that there's no ledges. So that's an important thing. If you're holding, we use a 700 burr when we do it. If you're holding that burr parallel to the long axis of the tooth, the tapered nature of the burr will not allow you to put a ledge. So make sure you're, you know, constantly holding the burr along the long axis of the tooth. Once the tooth is prepped, you do your ideal prep. You see how much, if there's still decay there after the prep, you remove your decay. If you choose to do pulp therapy, obviously if there's a pulp exposure, you're going to do a pulpectomy on that tooth. If there's not a pulp exposure, you can do indirect pulp therapy. It seems like most of the teeth that we're prepping, though, the decay is so large that pulp therapy is needed.
We access the nerve, remove the nerve using a size 80 file. We put a formal creosol pellet in. After waiting the proper amount of time, what I do is use a material called Vitapex, which is basically an injectable root canal filling material that's bactericidal. You syringe it into the tooth, draw back as you're syringing so you don't overfill, and then I cap it off with a little ZOE. And that's basically the prep for those anterior crowns. It's very simple, very easy, very easily repeated, and the results are usually almost always the same.